to Wrestling with Goals, the Conceive, Believe, and Achieve podcast, where we delve into the minds of elite athletes and coaches to uncover their secrets behind their success. I'm your host, Sean Garris, former university wrestling coach, D1 wrestler, national champion, Olympic trials medalist, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, a three-time world team coach in grappling, and author. Join me as we explore the realms of training, mindset, goal setting, overcoming adversity, and various coaching methodologies in the world of sports. Get ready to be inspired and motivated as we learn from the best in the game on our journey to achieving greatness. This is part 2 of the 3-part series with Nicholas Coco, mindset and strength training coach from New York.
So that's it. But anyways, going into that, what I was going to talk about was, I remember getting chastised by my head coach because I was spending too much time with the heavier weight class and he wanted me to work with the smaller weight classes. I'm 200 plus pounds. I'm at probably 250 right now. I wrestled at a heavier weight classes as well. He wrestled at a slimmer weight class. I don't think he really understood that, or maybe he was just pissed off that these kids were giving me attention. I don't know. But it is a different approach when you come to the, dealing with kids, right? Like the heavier weights and the lower weights. It's a different training kind of regimen.
Yeah, obviously the story you're telling, I mean, there's massive egos at play, unfortunately, within the wrestling community. But that could have definitely been a factor. But yeah, I was talking to an athletic director one time, and he had no wrestling background, right? Basketball guy, which is It's America, of course. Yeah. Wrestling is niche, right?
Yeah.
Still, football and basketball run the day. Let's keep it real on the podcast. In college, and that's where we're seeing I'm sure about like the college programs. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
A lot of the wrestling programs, unfortunately, are under scrutiny because they don't bring in the same type of revenue that a football and basketball does in the States. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I'm telling him about wrestling, and I explained it to him like this. I'm like, about track and field, there's a thrower coach, there's a sprint coach, there's a distance coach. I was like, wrestling is kind of like that. You got your lightweight coach, you got your heavyweight coach. So this was like a moment for me. I was like, wow, because I was trying to think to explain it to him. Mm-hmm. And he got it from that analogy. Like it's like track and field, positional almost.
Yeah.
And they do have to. So a kid who's 250 pounds is probably not going to drop to his knee and shoot. Obviously, we've had some guys here in the U.S. who've defied the odds, but our average high school kid is not going to do that. I need to teach him a snatch single from an underhook.
Yep.
Just for the, don't spend he can. I'm not saying he can't, because I don't ever want to be that coach. Like, you can't do that, or that's never going to work. Like, I actually am not like that. But probability, it's all about ROI, and we only have an hour in practice, 90 minutes, 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Should he spend all his time on the low single leg, John Smith style, or should he spend his time on an underhook series?
Mm-hmm.
Coach, I'll let you decide.
Yeah, well, let's go with that. Let's go with the underhook series, because I don't think I want to. The problem with heavyweights is the when you go low single like John Smith, if you don't get it right, the other guy's going to be dropping that 250 pounds on you, maybe 300 pounds on you. So yeah, forget it, lights out. One of the things you alluded to earlier was visualization training. I wanted to talk about that. I remember talking to. When my brother, so I didn't tell you this, my brother went to Oklahoma State when Jose was the coach there, and he got a lot of cool training partners when he was down there. He was down there with Kevin Jackson, John Smith was a student, or he was wrestling at the time, Chuck Barnes, I think that was his name, but also Randy Couture was down there. And through that process, I was able to kind of befriend Randy. But I remember him telling me in the UFC days about how he visualized, he would go into the cage prior to his matches, do a walk around, test out the fences, stomp on the ground. How important is visualization? Like, when he talked to me, it sounded kind of foreign. Like it was foreign to me. I'm like, well, I guess it could work. I don't know. Like, how important is that to you guys, and what kind of success are you seeing with visualization?
Yeah, visualization. I mean, that's a whole nother thing to get buy-in on. You talked about it earlier. But
Hmm.
my first experience with visualization, I gotta pay homage, is like my coach Don Murray at Brockport. One day we had a super tough practice. We all did live, and it was kind of what we were saying. It was just like the gauntlet, like 3-man groups. We were all tired, and usually after practice, we would sit down, and the coach would talk to us, deliver kind of the State of the Union a little bit, right? Typical practice format. But then he had us kind of lay on our back, right?
Hmm.
And this was early in the season, maybe November. And he was like, think about getting your hand raised. What is it going to smell like? What is it going to sound like? The whistle's going off, that type of thing. And going through the imagery portion, which is the senses.
Hmm.
That's another level. Typically with the visualization, I'll keep it super high level because again, it's kind of it's like anything. It's like going from penetration step to teaching them, a low single backdoor finish. Like one's intro, one's advanced. I'll just say, hey, buddy, lay down for 5 minutes. Think about hitting your number one move.
Hmm.
I keep it super high level. Shut your eyes, lay down flat, somewhere quiet, maybe in your bedroom, whatever at night. And then as the athlete shows me more interest in mental training and that sort of thing, I'll introduce the imagery portion, which is the 5 senses, which we all know, introducing stimuli. But I didn't know that about Couture. I did read one of his books.
Hmm.
So he would go into the cage. That's something that's really cool. One of the things I really believe in, like I'll give a real example. So this weekend's a state tournament, right?
Okay.
So if you have a kid who didn't make it to the States, let's say, it's very good for them to go um, not only as a spectator, but to visualize and hear and see what that process is like. Um, if they're trying to reach that pinnacle, it's like going to the Olympics if you're trying to be an Olympian, or or rather, if you did make the state tournament, and I'll just use that because it's this weekend here, it's relevant. You should get there early. Actually, you should try to go prior and kind of do what Randy did for the listeners. You should go down to the floor. You should look at the lights. You should know where the bathroom is. You should know where the water fountain is. Just do a simple walkthrough for 20 minutes. When I used to coach at the college, at Hunter College, I was a big believer in bringing the team up the night and getting a workout in on the mats while they were down, even if it was just like a flow drill or something more intense, just so they can get acclimated to the environment. That's the key word, acclimated to that. And that's what Randy was doing all those years ago. So Coach Coco's not saying anything that's new under the sun. I'm just repurposing it and reformatting it to benefit the next generation. Because I
Hmm.
don't want to come across as like, a know-it-all or somebody who is like that. I would like to pay respect to the greats and the people who before us who've already figured these things out.
Yeah. Hey, if you're just joining us, we're talking to Coach Coco, a specialist with the mindset and with strength training down there in the great state of New York. We've been talking about the mental aspect of wrestling. I wanted to kind of ask you about, I guess, the strength training as well, because up here in Canada, I don't think there is a very. I'm going to tell you. Let me think. Like, there's not a lot of specialization for wrestling. I don't think it's really understood.
Mhm.
It's such a complex sport. You're using every single muscle in the body. So strength training up here, I think it's just generalized. From my understanding, even when I was coaching up at the university here, there was zero, access to any strength trainer that had a wrestling background. It was just kind of like all encompassing. So, what are the key differences between strength training for wrestling versus other sports? Like, what would you say?
Yeah, especially, we would categorize it as combat sports.
Mhm.
Obviously, the demands of a combat sport is going to be different. I'm assuming in Canada, just like in America, like football is big. So a lot of strength and conditioning people have a football background, probably hockey, right?
Mhm.
That's the base that they're operating from. But for wrestling specifically, there's a lot, but I'll try to keep it super high level.
Mhm.
Pulling strength. Pull is very important, pulling strength. That's why as wrestlers, we always did so many pull-ups. Our wrestling coaches who had no idea about this still knew we needed to do the pull-ups.
Mhm.
And there's obviously science and reasoning behind that. But more importantly, like a lot of rowing, a lot of proper deadlifts, head up, hips in, chest straight, back straight, chest up, head up, that sort of thing. So dumbbell rows, different type of row variations. So you want to do a lot of more pulling than pushing, because if you think about it from a takedown perspective, when I'm shooting, I'm pulling the legs in typically.
Mhm.
I'm not pushing them away, right? So you probably won't see a lot. I still will do and program bench press into the program. Like a lot of dumbbell variations typically are one arm, like unilateral one arm. But you should be getting your pull-ups in. You should be doing your rows. You should be doing deadlifts. I think it was Coach Gable actually that even had brought into, which is a way more technical lift, but the power clean. But just like we teach technique, there is progressions within the weight room. Another limiting factor is grip. So obviously, if I get a 2-on-1 or a gut wrench, if we're talking freestyle, or a 2-on-1 wrist control, I'm trying to go for a tilt, I need to have varying degrees of grip strength. So grip is super important, whether that's holding plates for time, using a rope, either doing pull-ups like we used to do with the rope, or even like any sort of like attachment to the gym. So there's always ways to get in a little extra grip training. But I've talked about the pull, I talked about grip. The last one I'll talk about is the neck. That's why our coaches had us do neck bridges.
Yes.
They were onto something.
Yep.
So neck training statistically reduces concussions. I know we spoke about head injuries. So neck strength in particular is super important. A lot of the data and research like kind of leans into protecting the brain and protecting the spine. So I think a lot of coaches don't want to show it because it's not sexy. And a lot of athletes don't want to do it because they look weird. So we got to call that out for what it is, but it's so important. If you look at a lot of I'm sure you've seen it like in the Eastern Bloc, some of the Eastern countries, European, they do a lot of those frontward, backward type bridging and kind of rotating on the neck from the tripod. Like that's huge for awareness on the mat. So yeah, the demands are obviously, to answer your question, are super different. It's hard not to get into making it more complicated than it is, which is not my goal here. But yeah, if you're going to if you think like working out like a typical bodybuilder or doing some like workout on TikTok or so whatever is not going to have the same. Is it better than nothing? Of course. But is it going to have direct translation, direct carryover, or benefit you better, or build the mental toughness that you need, like a set of deep squats with a heavy barbell? No.
Yeah.
So I hope that kind of helps.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of kids when they get in, they just want to get in the gym and push. I call it ego lifting. Just get in there and they just can get confused of what they have to do because they've read, because it was for us, it was muscle, or for me, it was Muscle and Fitness that I would read, or Flex magazine, and then try to lift like these guys that are bulked up on steroids.
That's a whole nother story.
Yeah, it just didn't work. And then I guess the replacement for that nowadays is the Instagram. Kids are learning from that, and they're learning improper techniques. And they're, in the process, they're probably, doing some really bad things for their sport. But, the pushing is good. The pushing is good to know not to do it, but, to emphasize more on the pulling, because some kids will probably be like, oh, well, I don't need bench press. Well, you do need it, but, I don't need to emphasize bench press as much. Maybe I should be doing those deadlifts, like you said. Maybe I should be doing the grip strength training, emphasizing that. What I guess, how would you train an athlete in season versus out of season with the strength training? Because I know that, you've got a little more demand. A demanding wrestling season can really take a physical toll on a kid.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. And the number one mistake athletes make in all sports is not training during season. So that's one of the biggest mistakes an athlete can make. It doesn't matter if it's wrestling or not. In our sport, training in season is for two things. Obviously, to increase performance, but more importantly, prevent injury. So the lifting will be different because obviously the volume is going to decrease. in time and, amount of weight, but also the sessions. So time and sessions. So typically, an in-season athlete ideally would train twice a week, whether in like an upper, lower, or a full body split. It depends on the coach, what they've done with this athlete in the past. But yeah, it's gonna change the amount of lifting and how long and the type of volume and even the type of exercises you choose. It's really hard to say, right? It's like very generalized, but the point being, it does change on different types of the year. You should still lift in season, and it should follow basically what you were doing in the off season. It's really hard to start a lifting plan in season if that athlete didn't do it in the off season, because they won't really have a base or foundation. It's like the wrestler coming in just has not done any summer wrestling and coming in the first day. Obviously they got a long road to toe. So same concept applies. It's consistency wins, brilliance with the basics, keeping it super high level, especially with high school, middle school kids. They don't need to know how to do some great, even for us, like something that's really great, like an Olympic lift or some sort of more complicated lift. They probably don't need, stick with the basics, dumbbells, kettlebells, basic form, like head up, chest up, back straight, hips back, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. And why would I know why, but just for our listeners, that some of these younger kids, like, why are you talking about posture in these lifts?
Yeah, a big thing is to obviously prevent injury, but reinforce proper form, because the exercises we're doing in the weight room, we want to have a direct translation on the mat as well. They won't technically, but posture is power. If my back is bent over and I'm in a bad position, if I don't get injured because I'm 15, I'm going to go and shoot a takedown like that, and he's going to stuff my head, sprawl, and spin behind. So this stuff, the strength will translate. I think the big thing to take away from this topic, if the coaches aren't bought in yet, or the athletes who are listening, like if there's two wrestlers, they're both 160 pounds, 5'10", the guy who is stronger will have to use less energy to get single leg, to get move. So if there's two equally skilled wrestlers, same age, height, weight, the one who is stronger is going to probably win, because it's going to take him less energy to complete said move in the 6-minute, 7-minute match, 5-minute, whatever. So I think that's an important takeaway, is like to invest in this, because it's going to make your movements, your coordination, and it's going to make everything a lot easier. So life will be a lot easier for you as well.
We interrupt this program to bring you an important announcement.
Looking for top-tier healthcare in the GTA? Look no further than the Core Optimum Health Center. Founded by Dr. Pat Graham, official chiropractor for the Toronto Blue Jays, their clinic offers a wide range of services, including physiotherapy, chiropractic care, acupuncture, massage therapy, naturopath, and more, all in a caring professional environment. They also are proud partners with the Shift Concussion Management Program, offering the latest concussion care and online neurocognitive impact testing at their Mississauga location. At the Core, your health is their priority. Visit the Core Optimum Health Center today and experience industry-leading care.
Yeah, definitely. What's some of the mistakes that you think that these wrestlers are making these days in their training, their weight training?
Weight training in general. A lot of the mistakes that the wrestlers are making is, one, like you had Muscle and Fitness, I had bodybuilding.com. They have TikTok, Instagram Reels, is following that and thinking that that's going to translate into wrestling related performance. You talked about it a little bit before, and so did I. Like, they're working the front side, the mirror muscles, the ego muscles, I think you called it. We really should be concerned with the back side, the lower back, the rhomboids, the rear delts, the hamstrings, calves. Let's not get, but that sort of thing. The posterior chain would be the proper term for this. I try to avoid sounding like a nerd, like it's my kinesiology class, but the posterior chain you should emphasize to prevent injury and have a really big engine. Other mistakes I see guys making are the same mistakes since, before Vision Quest. Too much running, not enough lifting, starving yourself, not working on your mindset, obviously, spending too much time, doing things that aren't going to help you, hanging around with the wrong people, doing that sort of thing. So lifestyle, really wrestling is a sport. I did not get here, but we will go into this.
Yep.
Is lifestyle biz lifestyle. You know this. You've been in a Division I room. Everyone's talented. Everyone's good. What is the difference maker, right? Is the kid who, are you interested or are you committed? Do you love it or do you like it? Do you believe into the lifestyle? So there's a lot of talk now, like, oh, it's a sacrifice. I had to sacrifice. Champions don't sacrifice anything. They do what they want to do. They've made the choice. They love this. This is what they look forward to doing. So that's, in my opinion, when we talk about this, the right attitude to have. What I will call, I've done videos, the champion mindset. The champion does not sacrifice anything. He lives for the 5 a.m. workout. He wants to. He doesn't look forward to going to I don't know what you guys call it up there, the pub or the bar on a Saturday evening. He's looking to take somebody down under the lights, either on the mat or in the octagon or the boxing ring or the football field, the rugby or the hockey. That's where they live. That's where they thrive. That's where they're comfortable. So everybody's different, but if they take something away, it's like you got to sacrifice, and that's where the confidence comes from. Making those sacrifices and the preparation.
I've had athletes in my room, where I've seen that kind of attitude. How do you instill that athlete in the other ones in the room, or how do you get buy-in to that kind of that mindset?
Yeah, it's a tough question. Something I learned from my coaches in college and some of my mentors is the difference. This will help. Intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. The $1 million question: how do we build intrinsically motivated athletes? I actually read a really good book about this that kind of touched on this, Wrestling Tough by Mike Chapman. He was it's an old book. It's he starts diving into sports psychology, but really one of the first things I read on this, since we're on this topic, and something I think you would like as well, because there's a lot of history there, and that's something that I appreciate, and the anecdotals, the stories, and that type of thing. But anyway, to fast forward, we got to provide athletes with choice. So choice is one way to build autonomy. So choice leads to autonomy. So autonomy means they are in control, right? So you have to balance the old school way of saying, you do this, and I do this all the time. I'm like, because I said so, or this is the way it is. We're not turning this into a parliament meeting here. This isn't the Congress down in but at times though, you need to start to build choice in them and let them decide and build ownership. And hey, why don't you guys run the warm up today? That sort of thing. We can go into more specific examples, but that's the first step. Autonomy, giving them choices, just like your own kids, decisions, things like that. They love that. That increases the buy-in. Okay, the bonds, right? The culture. You kind of alluded to this earlier, that family atmosphere, and obviously dealing with troubled youth. That's what they're lacking, right? We'll call a spade is. They usually gravitate towards, in your professional career, gangs, obviously things like that, because they're missing. That's one of the factors, is they have that bond or that feeling of belongingness. So what can we do with this information? As coaches, we can create that culture within our programs to help those types of youth, to help those types of kids, whether they come from that background or not. Kids are still looking for that, right? And then I'd say the last one, going back to that controlling the controllables, that choice thing, having them want to do well, not just for validation of others, but for themselves. And then that would be the direct mental work, is them say, hey, listing out, why'd you start wrestling? What do you love about the sport? What makes you different than other people? Are you doing this for your mom and dad, or are you doing this for yourself? Are you doing this because you love the sport, or are you doing this because you love to win? Or do you love both? But that's the nutty and gritty of it. Getting to there is hard. It's a process, and it's a challenge, but it's worth it, because the question is, how do we build that? It takes a lot. It's a lot. And community and coaches and family. It's going to be a triple threat. It's going to be a multi-pronged approach.
Yeah.
Not easy question.
You have those athletes that are really ready to buy in, and then you have those athletes that just come to practice and kind of just like, yeah, I'm gonna
Going
do
through the
the,
motions.
yeah, I'm here. I remember having a kid that just, she thought her, well, I'm going to say he or she, because we figured it out, didn't we? But she thought she was too good for the room, and then she'd come in and she'd come in late, and as much as you tried as a coach, to say, pull them aside and say, hey, listen, you're only hurting yourself. What I would label her as a talent fixed athlete. I'm good. I'm fixated on my talent. I don't need to work anymore. And it was kind of as a coach, it was kind of repelling as well, because it was like, you know what, you don't need you want help, but you don't want my help. And I struggled as a coach to kind of you pay attention, but you're like, she doesn't listen, or he doesn't listen. Sorry, I've already given it away. So she doesn't listen, right?
We've had plenty of those,
yeah, but it's those talent fixed athletes. I found that when they get into trouble, not to trouble, but like when they don't want to work, when they come up against somebody that is their match, they get beat, they get frustrated, they throw a fit. There's no explanation. There's no ownership, and and then the next time around they either cheat or they don't want to compete. What do you have any advice for, and I'm asking selfishly, because if I ever come across another one of those athletes, God help me, please no, but I know I will, eventually. So how would you deal with somebody like that? Or how have you dealt with somebody like that?
I like that term. You called it a talent fixed athlete. I've actually never heard that before. That's a great description for this individual scenario. Okay, I hate to give this response, but it is the culture. Hopefully, if you create a strong enough culture and program, it will almost like absolve them and immerse them in it. Before going full nuclear, I'll talk about the nuclear option after. But if you're the coach and you and the assistants are promoting this culture of consistency, intensity, all the things we all love and know as coaches and athletes, like hard work, all the stuff that wrestling gave us and we know can help them, right? Like, hey, the lateness, and it's one, I would try to figure out why this kid is looking for attention this way, such as you said earlier, being late. Like, what's going on there? Maybe dig a little deeper. Is it something at home? Is it something personal, right? Because it could be. We don't know, because we see them for 2 hours a day. You have no idea. And then obviously you try that route. That's step one. Try to level with the kid. What's going on? We need you here. The team, that type of thing. The team needs you. You try to level with the kid. The second step, which is what my college coach would do immediately, is like you just lock the kid out of the room. Like you take it away. So how do you get somebody's attention? The easiest way to get someone's attention is to remove yours. So essentially, if you temporarily suspend them or cut them, it's either going to have you might have a chance that they walk away, they go to a new club, they don't come back, or they look at it as almost like a Coach Carter moment where they're like the kids running and they're trying to work their way back. So maybe you level with them. Hey, you're not coming in today, but show me tomorrow that you want to be here on time. Show up to a lift, show up to the run tomorrow. Show up to the work, and they have to re-earn that trust. I think this is probably an important part of our discussion to talk about trust, maybe reinforcing trust. How, if I say I'm going to do something as a coach, I'm here at 3 p.m. I'm here for the bus. I'm here for the transportation. You as the athlete have to meet me halfway. So you're not holding up to your bargain. You're not meeting the standards. So we're going to have to, this is going to be the consequence essentially. And it'll get their attention real quick, an athlete like that, because they're probably used to getting away with this behavior and their talent has brought them so far that you're going to do it in an objective, non-emotional way. Like a coach, well, you're not mad. Hey, listen, I understand things come up and, this is what's going on. But until you show the work ethic that you need and you meet the standard, You can come back to practice.
Mm-hmm.
Kid will be mind blown.
Yeah.
Easier said than done, but I think you have to, or if you don't, the kid's never going to meet their potential.
That concludes part 2 of a 3-part series with Nicholas Coco, mindset and strength training coach. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Coach Garris and on X, as well as our Facebook page, Wrestling with Goals, the Conceive, Believe, and Achieve podcast. I hope you found today's episode insightful and inspiring. Your support means the world to us, so don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and leave a comment in the section below. Your feedback fuels our journey to bring you more valuable content and stories from the realm of sports. Until next time, keep pushing boundaries, believing in yourself, and achieving greatness. Thank you for listening.